Hey everybody, this is Brad from Johnson Small Engines, better known as the one-hand mechanic. If I can do it, you can too. Today we are working on a John Deere D110. I'm actually out here in West Virginia. I'm with a subscriber today. This video is about taking off the engine. We're going to replace the engine. So the first thing we're going to do is take the mower deck off. Okay, so mower deck is off. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the hood to start getting ready to drain the oil. And basically, when you remove the hood, it's just a clip right here. You just push two clips in, it should just pop right out. Now, these are normally pretty tricky, but this gentleman here, this is broken here from the last person who had it. So you're normally gonna try to push this to one side and then lift it out, and then the other side will come right out. And that's pretty much how you take your hood out. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and drain the oil, which is right here, and they make it nice and easy for this one. So we're gonna go ahead and jack this up. I like to lean my tractors on the side that it drains faster, and if you have a couple 4x4s or a 6x6 that you can put under your rear tire. Now our emergency brake is still on, and that should help us stay. Go around your front. So we're just going to go ahead and put it right underneath the bracket, jack it up. Now this is where you would need a pair of pliers and a rag. Okay, it can get pretty messy, and that's another thing. That's another reason why I lean the machine, because if you don't lean the machine, you have your cable here for your lights. That will be a mess. Sometimes these don't come out as far as this one. This is actually a nice one, and we do need to take this off for our new engine that we put on there, because the engine just has a plug, so we're going to take this off. But we're going to drain it first. Just go ahead and twist it, half turn, pull this out, and you have to be careful. If you're doing this with the engine hot, it can definitely burn you, so be careful. We don't want to be working on the engine when it's hot, so we're draining it cold, but the oil should be all down at the bottom of the oil sump, so it should all drain out. Now also, if you twist your oil cap and pull it out a little bit, it'll also help make it flow a little faster because it allows air to go in. Okay, so while we're draining the oil, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the battery on the negative side so we don't have to worry about that. We'll get that out of the way. That should be, depending on if you have the OEM nuts and bolts from John Deere, they're 10 millimeter. Just gonna tuck that out of the way, just so we don't have any chance of it being connected. I'm gonna put the nuts and bolt back on just so we don't lose them. Now we're gonna come over to we have to get the wires disconnected from the engine. It's really, on these, they're not that bad at all. This is a single cylinder, 19.5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton engine. We're going to go ahead and whenever you disconnect the red cable from your starter, you want to make sure, now I made a special tool a little bit thinner because I found out that my 7/16, which this is, fits on the outside, you can't get it on the inside nut here. It's very important though that you hold this nut, just before you take this off, because I have loosened these up and destroyed the internal parts of the starter by accident. So these nuts on the inside a lot of times are loose. Just make sure that you just hold that there steady, and then the counterclockwise on the nut here. All you have to do is loosen it a little bit and it should unscrew. You have to take that wire off, put it back on. And the gentleman here did purchase the engine from John Deere, and it should be just plug and play. Now this is the electrical connector here, and it just has two little tabs, one on one side and one on the other. And obviously, most people, the way you should do it properly is you hold the one side and pull them out so you're not pulling the wires. It just disconnected very easily. You go ahead and push it off to the side. That should be all we need on this side. So let's go around to the other side and take a look. Okay, so on this side we have the throttle cable here, and then we have the fuel line here that goes to the fuel pump. This is the one that we have to disconnect. We do have a EVAP line here, which is their emissions. This one here should just come off. This is just a fastener clip tool that I like to use on everything, and instead of I've seen people break these little nubbies on the back side of the carburetor because they're plastic. So if you just push this off nice and gently, it should slide off like that. And you can see right here it's plastic, so you have to be very careful. And through time, they get brittle and they'll break. And if you break it, you do have to buy this neck, because if you don't, you'll suck air through here. If this isn't connected, you're going to suck air, and you could suck dirt, and that would ruin your engine also. So that is pretty important. And a lot of them out there don't even have this EVAP hose. All right, so now we have to pinch off the fuel line down here, and then we're going to take off the hose up here. Okay, so I'm going to use my tool from Harbor Freight. It's just a plastic fuel line clamp, works great. Put it right here, clamp it on, and we're going to take it off up here. This is the old style clamp here, just a pair of pliers. Slides off to the side. Just going to put that off to the side, like so. Okay, so now we're going to take this throttle cable off. Now, I do recommend that you either use a black magic marker, and right here you put a mark, and put here a mark, and then you'll know, you'll just know where you're at, because when you throttle up to fast, you'll be right here, okay? So now we're throttled up to fast. Now right up here is where the choke goes on and off. There's a little lever right here, and that's what makes the choke go on. As we're going from the fast position to choke, okay, you'll see this little paddle right there. And that paddle has to push this arm right here to the closed position, which it is. That means that it's blocked off, your choke is on, it's working. You can adjust this incorrectly, and then you won't have the choke going on. So it's important that we're gonna do it on the new machine anyway to show you how to adjust that, because we're replacing the engine. But just so you know, if you're taking this off just to do something else on the carburetor or whatever, if you mark it, you're good. 25 Torx. Now this right here has a 90-degree bend in the cable. So once we get this, now I try not to take this all the way out. Most of the time you don't need to. It'll just come out like that. And then 90 degrees, it'll pop. It just really popped right out, but there's a 90-degree cable on there. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna come around to the muffler, and the muffler has to be taken off. Now this pipe just goes into a muffler. The mufflers are usually bolted to the frame of the machine. So it is very nice and convenient that you can just take off this pipe most of the time. It's an Allen head bolt. A normal standard Allen wrench should fit there. So this is a 1/4-inch Allen wrench, will work. And somebody out there, a lot of people will use the sockets. I'm doing this job on the road, so I don't have everything, but I did bring.
Good.
Yeah. Now the one down here can be a little tricky, and I don't know if I can get my elbow. Okay. All right.
Good.
Yeah. The gentleman he PB blastered this before I got here for like a day. So these bolts sometimes can be tough, or they can be missing from vibration. And I've seen that too. So, and I think the new engine comes with the gaskets, so we don't have to worry about that.
Two different ones. Now
this should pop off. I'm gonna tap it a little bit here, like so. Comes right off. Turn it to the side a little bit. There it is. Okay, so there you go. Now, since we're on this side, right here is an engine bolt. I usually, in my normal videos, I can put the machine up in the air so I can show you this. It's going to be a little tricky, but from underneath, we're going to have to take off these bolts. We also need to take off the transmission drive belt and the engine pulley that drives everything. So that's what we're going to do next. Now our oil is pretty much done. We're going to go ahead and put the cap back on that. We're going to get the motor off, turn it on its side to take this out, and then we're going to put this one onto the new one, and we'll go from there. The machine is up on jack stands. Be very careful when you're working underneath your machine. I'm doing this at a subscriber's house, and I'm trying to be as safe as I can do it, and I'm trying to also get a video out to you guys to show you how to do it yourself. Now the tools that I'm going to use, I'm using a 1/2-inch drive electric gun with a 5/8 socket. That's going to take off the bolt that goes to the pulley on the engine. And then I'm using a 9/16 socket. Now I do have a 3/8 swivel here, and we're going to try to show you the bolts that are up underneath and show you how to get the bolts off the engine. So first thing we have to do is get the engine bolt out and cross your fingers that the pulley will come down. I would suggest soaking the top of you can spray it up on top where the shaft is to the engine with PB Blaster or WD-40 or any kind of penetrating lubricant that you have, possibly overnight if you can, just to help you out. So we're going to try to get on our backs here and show you how to do this. Okay. All right, so the 5/8 bolts here. Make sure it's a counterclockwise. A lot of people ask me, I don't have an electric gun, how do you keep this from moving? Well, this one here has 2 holes in it. You may be able to put like a Phillips head screwdriver or a rod up in there and let it spin around until you hit something, and you can put something, a bracket or something to make it, stop working. Or You can put a pipe wrench up in here if needed. Other than that, you have to take something on the top of the flywheel up top. There's probably a lot of people out there that have done it, so they may comment below on how to, if you're not using electric gun, to take this bolt out and have this stay stationary. But I've always used air tools, and now I'm using electric tools, so honestly, I've never really had to have that problem. And I can tell already that we're moving, which is great. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this all the way off. Always have the emergency brake on when you're taking off this pulley, because that alleviates any pressure from the belt. So the belt tension will be, there'll be no belt tension on the transmission drive belt, as you'll see when we bring this down. Very long bolt. We're gonna slide this down. It slides down, the belt will just drop off the pulley like that, and boom, you're done. Now, also here, you have fingers. Now these fingers are actually part of the frame. A lot of people are like taking their transmission drive belt off and looks like we gotta do a transmission drive belt. Yeah. All right, so the belt definitely needs to be done, but we're halfway there here. But we're putting the engine on today, but we're definitely gonna have to do the drive belt. I have a video on that too, on how to do that drive belt. It's a really good video. So I'll put that in the link in the description below. So now we have 4 bolts, one here, we got one here, and one here. There we go. All right. That one came off. There we go. All right. We're gonna go ahead and pull all these down, and we'll get right back with you. Okay, so we have the engine off. Wasn't too bad. I didn't want to put that in the video because however you get the engine off the frame is up to you guys. I don't want anybody getting hurt, so make sure you take your time when you do it. We have the new engine here that we're going to put on. This is the old engine here. I'm going to take off the plug from the new engine. I'm sorry, this is the old engine. This is the new engine, if I said that incorrectly. But I'm going to take this plug out of here where the oil drain is, and then I'm going to put the tube. This is a nice drain that John Deere has. Make sure when you do take, as you can see, there's no thread sealer on this one right here. I'm going to put thread sealer on that, and then I'm going to get it into there. Right now, we're going to go ahead and change off camera. Like I said, there's a link in the video description below on how to take this transmission drive belt off. We're going to go ahead and do that real quick right now. I did change out the oil drain from this one to this one, so we're going to go ahead and put this on the frame, and we'll be right with you. Okay, so I have the motor on, and you just have to line up with the old marks. And I did notice on this brand new motor, they do not have threads in it, okay? But the bolts that came off the other one, they have self-tapping, okay? So these should go straight up in there. Make sure you start them straight and they go in. We're gonna go ahead and put these bolts in. I always start with the front two first. Just get them started by hand. And then as long as you're going in straight. Okay, get it started. We'll move to the other side. Right here. So what we're going to do now, put a little bit of grease on here to keep this lubricated, so if you ever need to take the shaft off again. Now our belt for our transmission, as you can see, it is brand new. We did change this out off camera. I do have a link in the description below for you guys, so you can check that out, but it's going to fit perfectly up here. Unfortunately, you can't move the fingers, and you can't, I would not pry these fingers out because they'll bend, and if you don't put them back exactly where they should be, the belt could pop off when you disengage the transmission drive as far as pushing the clutch in. So we're gonna go ahead and lubricate this up and then put the pulley back on. Okay, so put a little bit of grease around here. Never cease would be a little bit better if you have it. If you look right here on the pulley, okay, we have a indentation. That is where they put the key. So if you look inside there, you can see it, the key. And then the shaft, on the engine shaft, you have to line them up. So what I normally do is I'll make sure I'm getting close to where I know I'm going. I get the belt on, the transmission drive belt, pull it over. Remember to have your clutch / brake on when you're putting this on, so you have some slack in your belt right here, and make sure you go up and around. Make sure your belt is inside the guides, which they are. Take your long bolt. We're going to tighten this up. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, Okay, so right here I have the muffler, the half muffler that came off, okay? I did notice that this was the old gasket. It was stuck to the muffler, so make sure you check to make sure that this is off, and it's, you know, you don't want to put 2 on 2. All right, then we have a brand new one, came with the motor, and I did sand this down to make this smooth again. If you have any carbon buildup, you might want to sand that down. And basically what I'm going to do is just try to get this back in here first, because we had a little bit of a problem getting it out. Now, you want it to be snug here, because if it's loose right there, you'll blow exhaust out, and it won't even be quiet, it'll be loud. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to slide that in there. Just line it up, and then you just have to make sure you get both lined up correctly. So I get that snug, and then I walk that in, and the other side should be all lined up. And you can see on this side here that it's lined up inside there, and then we just go ahead and screw in. And definitely you could put a Loctite on this, like a red Loctite, to help you out. As long as they're tightened up correctly, you shouldn't normally have a problem, but if you want to make sure, you can go ahead and use red Loctite. Okay, so we have this nice and tight. We're going to come over around here, and just like we unplugged, we're just going to go ahead and plug the new one in. Now, also you can look to see, to make sure that you have the connections here are going to line up with the connections here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 on here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 on there, and they're going to connect just like this. I'm pretty sure you can only go one way. I don't think you can go the other way. But you plug that one in, so we're done there, and then we have to put this on. Just use your thin one. I use my thin one here. Okay, so I had to use the other nut from the other starter. The new engine didn't come with a nut. Now, I like to, well, you need 3 hands for this. You need 1, hold it, I might be able to do it that way. Make sure you're tight and snug, and that's not rubbing anywhere. I wanted it leaning a little on the inside, so that's good right there. Here, we actually have a brand new fuel filter right here. So we're gonna go ahead and take off the fuel filter from here. All right. All right, so now we have your evap line. Now this has a plug on it. How about that? So this is for if you don't have the evap line. Okay. So we're gonna pull the, I mean, you could leave that on there probably if you wanted to, but we're gonna do it the politically correct way, and we're gonna we'll take the cap off, and we'll put the evap where it belongs, like on there. You have your throttle cable here, and let's see here. I should be able to move that by hand. I'm going to put 90 degrees in there. This is already out. That's really tight. Why is that so tight? I should be able to move this. I think. Oh, I see. What is that? Okay. So the new engine came with a little stopper for the throttle. The throttle wouldn't move back and forth. I guess in shipping they didn't want all this stuff to rattle around. So there was a stopper right there. How about that? Wow. So that was sticking right there. As soon as I pulled it out, I was able to move the throttle. I was wondering why I couldn't move that. So that's something to learn. All right, so now we're going to put it all the way down to stop, to slow. Put the throttle down to slow. Come back down here. I don't know if you guys can catch this, but there's a little tab on the back of this. The little tab has to go into a slot before this will actually go in. So just keep that in mind when you're tightening it up. Adjust it now by putting it snug, and then we're going to try to throttle up top. We're going to go up to fast. Okay, now when we go up to fast, you can see the choke here. And actually, I think we're too far. Okay, so you're going to have to watch right in here. This is the paddle where my fingernail is. And the choke is right here. Now, when I go up to fast, okay, I'm actually hitting that, just barely tapping. You can see it coming up right here, the paddle into the, so I just need to, when the throttle stops, you want it to be just behind that, not on it like that. You want it to be just touching it, but you don't want it to be having the choke on. Right now the choke is actually on a little teeny bit. So I'm gonna unadjust this, and then I'm just gonna get it right to where it's just before going on. Now the throttle is up at fast, and I'm just gonna get this paddle just to go right behind that lever, that arm. And I'm going to tighten this up. Okay, now this, I'm going to take it down to idle, which I'll do now. Okay, and it's off, up to fast. It's just behind that paddle. Now, when I go to choke, it's on. And it's off like that, on, off. Okay, so that's pretty much how you adjust the choke. Hopefully you guys can catch that. We just have really bad lighting. I just hope that, make sure when you go up to fast, that the paddle is right at the choke line, right at the choke arm right there, which it is. It's not hitting it, but it's right before it. And then when you go up on choke, it actually pushes it on, it turns your choke on, and then you're able to go. All right, so that's it for that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and hook up the battery. And if you need to sand these off and clean them, go ahead and do so. We gotta go ahead and put oil in here. Okay, so we got this guy right at the top mark. It's gonna drop down a little bit. Oil filter, it'll drop down a little bit after we start it. So let's go ahead and give us the first run before we put everything back together again as far as the mower deck goes. Let me go ahead and run this. Okay, parking brake on. Now, because we did the transmission drive, I'm gonna go ahead and move this forward and backward just to make sure that the drive is okay after we get it started. Up on choke. It's gonna take a little bit to get the fuel going. All right, brand new motor. Gonna take the brake off and see if we move forward and backward. We've got a brand new transmission drive belt on this. So everything is looking good. I'm gonna go ahead and put the motor deck back on again. We'll double check the oil, and yeah, we should be done. Okay. So that pretty much sums up for how to remove and install this is a Briggs & Stratton 19 horsepower, 540cc single cylinder Briggs & Stratton engine on a John Deere D100. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe, share my channel with your friends, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.